Next up, we've got Ryan Horton from CBRE and Paul Dawson from Sky Studios Elstree. Welcome to the stage, guys.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name's Ryan Horton. I'm the Business Director at CBRE. I've been with the business now for about 14 years and actually joined as an apprentice. So look, I'm extremely passionate about developing young talent. So it's been amazing to see so many people talking about people today.
Yeah, I'm Paul Dawson, Director of Facilities for Sky Studios Elstree. Been with Sky around about 13 years now. I've had the pleasure of working across the whole Sky estate actually, and being fortunate enough to be part of the sort of development of Sky's estate as it's moved through a decade or so. And the latest project we did was the construction of a film lot in Elstree. Fell in love with the place, fell in love with the industry, and decided to stay there. So really enjoyed myself.
Thanks, Paul. Look, we want to spend the next 20 minutes talking to you about the power of partnership. So as I say, we're going to spend the next 20 minutes. We've got a few bits to talk through, but it's all right, Paul, to start off and kick off about your studio.
Yeah, so I just want to give a bit of an oversight of who we are, a little bit of a peek behind the curtain, a little VT, and then I'll explain a little bit about the site and the industry and some of the challenges that I've had and the things that CBRE are trying to work with me to solution for. So, you want to roll the VT, right?
Thanks.
Welcome to Sky Studios Elstree, the UK's newest film and TV studio, a home for the best of British, European and global creative talent. With 12 sound stages, from 10,000 to 40,000 square foot, 6 acres of backlot, over 250,000 square foot of workshop space, creating thousands of jobs, with 5 modern office blocks, plus easy parking, great amenities, and sustainability built in. All just 30 minutes from London. Everything you need, all in one place. Want to know more? Get in touch.
Got it.
Cool. So on the lot, a bit about what we are and what goes on our site. So we're just under 30 acres, and if you look up the graphic there, through the central spine we have all of our workshop space, the sort of lighter pink buildings. Around the perimeter, 1 to 12 are our sound stages. And a sound stage, if anyone doesn't know, is essentially a hangar, but very highly acoustically rated. So you could literally have a jet engine outside, but still shoot live dialogue. And our sort of customer base is high-end TV and large feature films. And some of the titles that we've had so far through the doors. So we opened our doors in 2023. We were shooting a little bit before that officially to get Wicked off the ground, but both Wicked 1 and 2 were shot with us. The new Jurassic Park, Bridget Jones, Paddington in Peru. A lot of the big titles that you've seen at cinemas lately have been shot with us, and we're really proud of that. So explain a bit of the life of a production really. It is like a runaway train. Once it starts, cannot stop. Has to be on time, has to be on budget. And our job as a studio is to facilitate that. So production will start with a couple of people. In the offices, might be finance people, writers, set designers, artists, those sorts of people. They'll develop the scripts, the set designs. They'll then translate those into official designs. They'll get passed on to a construction company who are specific to the film industry. That will really start to ramp up the presence of people on site, and they'll start really constructing these sets in anger into big enough pieces to be able to take them out of a workshop through a massive roller door, get them into a stage, bolt them all together. That ramps up over, depending on the size of the production, 3 to 9 months. So you can be constructing all of that time. You'll shoot on them for about 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Everything gets deconstructed, moved off-site, so you end up with this really slow ramp up, then this drop off. And that's something that makes it quite unique to operate a film studio. You haven't got that sort of that steady churn as you would do with a conventional office, data centre, whatever. So it does pose its challenges to us. What we aim for is to have multiple productions all doing that, so the baseline is set, but doesn't always work out like that. So a couple of the challenges that about 24 months ago I was starting to look at what the FM services should look like for our site, and quickly realised one size doesn't fit all, and it might need to be quite different to the rest of the Sky estate. So I looked at three main challenges really. First one, sustainability. Now, we're a very, very sustainable site, just via its design. It's new. We've got all the new gadgets, sub-metering, solar panels, the whole 9 yards. Our aim is to be the most sustainable studios in the world. We participate in the Albert Studio Sustainability Scorecard, and we've hit 95% in that, and that's great. But we don't want to stop there. We've got to maintain it and get better. We've got a lot of the low-hanging fruit already baked in for us. I think one of the highlights of last year actually was getting a call from one of the energy managers off-site to say, "Why didn't you tell us you've lost power?" We hadn't. We were completely off-grid on solar. We've got about just under 3 acres of solar, which is capable of about 40% of our consumption, but just so happened on that day that the site load was relatively low and we were completely off-grid. And for a site of 30 acres with all those buildings, it was really quite special, so it was good. So yeah, just looking for a partner who can bring their expertise from the industry and embed that in the film industry, because it can be quite wasteful, and that's not through carelessness. It's through the need for speed, and it's not common for a studio to really step into that space and really try and work with a production company on how they can be more sustainable. So first thing I was looking for really was a partner who could bring some expertise from elsewhere and help us do that. Next bit was on flexibility. So the real shrink and swell nature was something that really stood out to me when we first started operating the studio. We'd find ourselves being massively over-resourced one week and under-resourced the next, just based on that sort of ebb and flow of how the production's working and their activities. And we'd found that, okay, we've got a cleaning regime, or you might be cleaning something that's already clean. So we wanted to get away from that. We wanted our people to be multi-skilled, be able to turn up to a job, no matter what it was, and be able to do something. The film industry they're very, very highly skilled, and they need somebody who they can talk to who can speak their language and get them to where they need to be. And the last one was, actually we were looking at criticality. Someone was asking, like, list the critical assets. Impossible task. Every single asset on our site can be critical, just depending on who's there, what's it being used for. Like a shower in a dressing room might not sound particularly critical to most people, and it isn't in most environments. If you've got Ariana Grande stood under that shower, it becomes one of the most critical assets on site, and it has to work. So we were looking for a word, and it's reliability. I need my assets to be reliable, and I need a partner that I can work with to make sure that absolutely happens.
Thanks, Paul. So obviously when the bid landed, we wanted to put a real bespoke solution together to nail the three pillars that Paul, or the challenge that Paul set us. So again, following the same theme, sustainability. So the North Star for Sky Studios was to be the most sustainable studio in the world. In order to support with that, we thought it was important to get a sustainability and reliability manager dedicated and focused to the estate. So the ideal, the role that they would undertake is to really challenge our frontline teams and also our third-party suppliers to drive innovation and look to support that vision of getting to that sustainability target. Second to that, obviously Sky, right through the process, were happy to be an incubator or a test bed for any innovation on the market as well, which is great, right, for us as a supply partner. Therefore, with that, we were testing, trialling, and obviously going through that motion. And actually, the aim then is to make sure we've got a tested product that we could sustain there and obviously continue to deliver that sustainability target. And then finally, we've heard a lot about it today, but ESG can be a really vast space. It's quite complex, right? So we use what we call a maturity matrix, and it looks at about 14 different criteria. It looks at sort of biodiversity, water, energy, and we sit down with our client and we really start to look at where some of the challenges lie and actually start to rate them with our clients. We then target the 3 to 5 specific areas in which we think we can get the most return from that investment of time. Lean on to flexibility. This for me is really having what I call a multi-skilled team. So actually what we've done is we've challenged the team that transferred into us to see actually what their skill set is. We sat down, we did a skills gap analysis to determine what those gaps are, and then we put a robust training plan in place to fill that void and make sure they're as flexible as possible so we're not so heavily reliant on third parties coming in to support the critical environment. Recruitment, we actually set up a recruitment day in partnership with Sky. So we had that held at Sky Studios, whereby we had a number of engineers come down for the day. We partnered with Paul, we assessed them, we trialled and tested them, and we wanted to make sure that we got a new skill set that complemented the staff we already had on site. And then finally, looking at the soft side as well, we looked at that demand-led cleaning. So that's around actually looking at where our footfall was in particular areas. Rather than just clean, actually, let's actually target the areas that's got a high footfall. As Paul touched on earlier, we've got these peaks and troughs in different sets or different stages around the estate. So coming on to reliability, for me, it's really key that we get a solid asset verification and get that completed so we know the number of assets on site, the type we've got on site, the condition of those. And then with that, we sit down with Paul in this case, we've sat down and we actually worked with him what the critical assets are on that particular estate. So as you can imagine, lighting, power, heating, cooling, elephant doors. But to your point earlier, Paul, look, we are dealing with the likes of a Brad Pitt that's going to take a hot shower, right? So actually we need to be pretty agile and flexible in what our critical assets look like on a day-to-day basis. So with that, obviously we look at critical spares, obviously to house them and bubble wrap them. We're looking at technology to see if we can get some advanced warnings of when that particular asset could fail, should it fail. So that's all the things that we looked at throughout. So talking about partnership, what does success look like in a particular partnership we've got with Paul? Obviously, you know, conscious we only went live for the FM service on the 1st of January, so we're still in that sort of early stage. But for me, the times when I've got the best out of my team is when they feel part of a wider team, that one team approach. So when they feel actually part of the estates team as well with Sky Studios. So that's something that we've tried to replicate on site with the single logo, sharing that with Sky. And I really feel if someone has that sense of belonging, you get a lot more out of individuals when they share their vision.
Yeah, totally echo that. Some of the best work we've achieved at Sky in my career is when it has been, people talk about one team a lot, and it's very easy sometimes for a client to sit there and say, oh, we're one team, but then really start hammering their partner on something essentially, you know, quite trivial. At Sky, we really do believe in it, and we've seen when it works and we've seen when it hasn't. So what we do, we make sure it happens to help drive retention. You know, a lot of people have talked about retention of talent and things today, and as a client, we try to help that. So we offer out some of our benefits as a company to third parties, whether that be incentives through discounts on Sky, etc. We align our objectives as well. So my objectives will sit, and the whole team will have objectives that all sort of ladder up into mine. Always conscious that for someone's career, it might be a very different trajectory to mine, but there'll be synergies right across the board. We really do believe in it, and we really do walk the walk and don't just talk about it. It's super important to us.
Second point I wanted to make around success is having tough conversations. Look, I've been in the game a little while, and it's one of the most challenging, right? So we want to go and give good news to our customers, right? Tell them all the good things we're doing. But actually, it's just as important to have those difficult conversations. FM's tough, right? So the way in which we do that is making sure we're setting up with our clients the weeklies, the monthlies, the quarterlies, having that governance in place that we actually really sit down and have those conversations. And look, there sometimes have to be tough ones, right? But actually, I think that then continues that relationship, but also builds trust that obviously we're letting them know what's going on the ground.
Yeah, totally. it's something that has to happen. Particularly on our site, I need to know if something ain't quite right, because we can actually act as partners and lean in. Our production customers don't see multiple different service providers delivering services on site. They see Sky Studios Elstree team, and ultimately, for our brand, that's all they see. And the film industry is such a small circular business in the UK. Word gets out. If you have a negative experience, it gets around. So it's so important to have that. And those conversations are had at the right time with the right people, so we can all work together to find the best solution for our customers.
Thanks, Paul. And the final point I just wanted to make was around show site. So creating a site that, you know, both myself and my team are proud to work within as well. You know, we actually have a checklist, so we'll be looking at, you know, quality of plant room, you know, cleanliness of the site, the uniform they work in, the processes we've got. And, you know, that means the team are really proud to work in such an environment. And one, for us, you know, obviously it's something that, you know, environment we want to create for our team. For the client, obviously they've got to clean the site, they've got people with ambitions to make the best of that. And I suppose, you know, longer term, you know, I hope that when we get prospective customers in the studio environment come to us, we'll be able to take them down to Sky Studios, and hopefully Paul can vouch for us. I do hope so. But look, that's where I think the true partnership really comes out, in my view.
Yeah, and again, for us, it is about our reputation and driving that repeat business. Like I said in my last point, the film industry is small, and you do get the same people repeated. So a construction firm will work on one production, sometimes even roll into the next. So building those relationships and then working well with the site team is crucial, because it gets talked about. We had an issue with some lights, I think, and by the time another production came around, we went, we're not going to have issues with lights, are we? No, but it got back through. So it just shows sort of how small that industry is, but how key it is to act in a partnership and make sure the site is absolutely at its best at all times.
Thanks, Paul. Look, I suppose just in closing, really, the power of partnership. Look, we know we're on the start of our journey, and we've built hopefully some great foundations, which hopefully Paul would agree. Look, I'm really excited to see what the future holds, and I hope we can come back next year and say we did it as we said we would, right? But look, thanks for listening. I hope you found it useful.